Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of FreightWaves Now. I'm your host, Anthony Smith, and coming up, Michael Vincent is going to give us a broker update. But first, we're going to go to Zach Strickland with the carrier update brought to you by Powerfleet. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, and welcome to your Thursday carrier update presented by Powerfleet. I'm Zach Strickland. We're looking at volumes today because we are hitting this time of year where October volumes seasonally dip. If you look back in 2018 and 2019 there on our outbound tender volume index in the green and purple, you'll see that seasonally we see a bit of a dipping effect at the 1st of October. Big question about whether or not that's going to happen here or not. The answer is probably a little bit. It's already starting to go down, but again, it's not going to be to the same effect that we saw in 2018 and 2019 when rates plummeted. Again, volumes are still way above where they were. It would take a catastrophic failure of shipments to really drive things down significantly at this point. So again, there's still plenty of freight coming into the country through the ports. There's not a lot of signs that this is going to have any significant impact to freight volumes or flows in general, but it still will be important to watch here over the next week or so to see maybe you're not seeing an extra load or two coming out of some of these areas that you have been accustomed to. Definitely one of those things that can throw networks off. Volumes across the country, looking at our tree map here, seeing which markets are having the biggest increases, decreases week over week is what you're looking at here in green and red. 6.8% down in Atlanta versus this time last week, but still very high outbound tender volume index value. Ontario, again, Ontario goes through these ebbs and flows as things are coming in and going out. There's still a lot of volume coming out of there, but it is down 4.7% week over week. Allentown, Pennsylvania, another big market that we saw some definite contraction in expansion in the tender rejection rate this week, coming down in volume. Houston, Texas, another large market coming down as well. Looking at the map, you can see over there around Little Rock and Tallahassee, smaller markets, but showing increases nonetheless across the United States. St. Louis, Missouri, and 15.9% up week over week. Well, looking at outbound isn't the full picture of what's happening in a market. Of course, we're trying to ultimately judge capacity. Our head haul index, excluding 100-mile loads, is a good way to do that. That eliminates a lot of that short haul, city haul freight, I should say, or local haul freight, anything moving just corner to corner of a market, essentially. And this is going to tell us the outbound less the inbound volume. Looking at Los Angeles, showing a 12.6% increase in their head haul value, excluding 100-mile loads, versus last week. So that is a pretty strong. You can see on the map, it's in dark blue. Savannah, Georgia, another one showing a significant increase. That means that it could be one of two things. Their outbound volumes increased in proportion to their inbound volumes, or their inbound volumes decreased in proportion to their outbound volumes. Nonetheless, that means that freight flow definitely balanced towards the carrier here, as they don't have enough trucks coming into the market to facilitate that supply and that demand need. Looking down here in Lakeland, Florida, so this has been an ongoing impact, an exaggeration of the COVID environment, where I was talking about this a little bit yesterday, where we see some of these markets really exacerbating their head haul values. So we're seeing Lakeland become very deeply backhaul. This is going to be a problem for carriers moving forward, as there's just so much consumption in the Lakeland market, and it's driving, it's making it very, very difficult. Even though rates overall are still up across the country, carriers certainly are not able to position in the Lakeland market as much as they were in the past, at least in proportion. Other side of the spectrum, Los Angeles, of course, showing up. Now, I want to point out the Joliet and Chicago relationship. We've got Chicago being a very head haul market right now. Now that's just to the north side of the city. And then we have Joliet just to the south side, which is the industrial sector, showing a negative value. And this has been expanding since August. So again, capacity going into different sections of the city or regions can definitely have an impact on your availability to find freight. So Joliet, if you're going into the southern part of Chicago, going to have a little bit more trouble finding freight. And that'll do it for today's carrier update.
The comprehensive logistics offerings from PowerFleet cover in-cab ELD, fleet management, trailer tracking, cargo monitoring, and tracking other assets such as chassis and intermodal containers. Power up your operations with PowerFleet.
Hi, I'm Vincent. Welcome to the broker update on this beautiful Thursday afternoon or morning. This is, we're looking at our outbound tender volumes, and what we're looking at here is obviously they're very, very high at 15,691. There's a little dip overnight, but still extremely elevated, and there's no pressures really for this to be going down. Imports are high at the ports, even air freight, rail's doing pretty good. We expect this to remain pretty high throughout the rest of the season. Traditionally, October is a little bit lighter, but it's not going to drop anything significantly that would cause any change in the rates or the pressure or capacity. When we look at the different outbound tender volume index, or the number of loads by length of haul, I want you to notice something here is that the length of haul, long haul tender volumes are still ticking up. When you see the tweeners or the in-between loads, the medium loads, the short haul, and the city have all dipped a little bit. Now, those will tick up in the next week or so. If you look at this closely and you have sonar, when you look at this, you can see that these converge and diverge. When long haul goes up, it lags, and then the shorter hauls start to increase as well as we see those start to hit those regional and local markets. So expect those to come back up a little bit in the next week as well. Moving on to our outbound tender rejection, still at 25.56 overall, very, very high, 1 and 4. When we talk about October being a little bit lighter than September traditionally, and we see that right now as well, we're not talking about anything that's going to drop this into the 5% like you saw back in 2019, or even the 17.68 in 2018. It is still very, very high, and we continue to see the just over 1 and 4 in all modes being rejected. If we take that down to the actual modes, we see that the van is at 25.66, as we talked about, and reefer is at 43.85. So extremely, extremely high pressures. Now, if we look at the outbound tender reject view on our map here, you can see that there are very, very tight capacity in the Northeast and in the central of the part of the country. Now, these are movements day over day. It's also quite high in Los Angeles and Southern California, as we're talking about 20%, almost a quarter of the loads, which is a high tender rejection rate. The thing I want to point out here, and we'll dig into one market, is the head haul volatility. The head haul volatility is going to give you the change in the outbound versus the inbound in a market, and that volatility is going to show you the extreme changes or the pressures on that capacity, whether it be loosening or tightening. These that we're seeing at the top of the list: Kansas City, Missouri, Fargo, North Dakota, Pendleton, Oregon, Little Rock, and Buffalo, New York, and there's several others that are there that are very high increases in head haul, meaning there's tightening in capacity. So if we dig into this a little bit, let's look at Erie. Erie's head haul index is at 36.38, and if you remember from that last map, it was dark blue. We look at the outbound tender index or the head haul, and let's break it down a little bit for a second. When you see the outbound volumes ticking up, it is very, very, it causes pressure on the capacity and causes rates to go up and tightening in the market, obviously. But when you couple that with a drop in the green line here, which is your inbound, it just exponentially increases that change. And then you have a situation like this, 52. So look for those markets, look for those changes in head haul and the dynamics below them, and you'll be good. Thank you very much.
And that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of FreightWaves Now. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, you can check out our FreightWaves content on all your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple TV. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.